generations. And now, the power of two restores the one.
We got a bidet! Hey everybody, and welcome to my channel, Dyad in the Rough. Today, I want to talk about something that I am actually very excited to share with all of you. I do know that Shark Week has been coming up, and I wanted to put something out there for a little bit of fun with the Shark Week as well. And I actually decided to read the Jaws book and compare it to the movie and tell you guys some of the cool insights that I picked up. So, initially, just letting you know, there's a lot of differences between the book and the movie. So first things first, the book is actually divided up into three separate parts. Okay. So the first part focuses on, Amity Island, finding out that there's a shark in the water and they have to do something about it. Part two is a little different, so I'm going to save that for a second. Part three is when our trio goes out on the boat and then, goes to try and kill the shark. Well, part two, and the one that I didn't mention anything about yet, is actually a very interesting subplot, because a lot of the interactions with the characters in the book are much different than they are in the movie. Like, there are some characters that are complete 180s of what they are in the book, just to make the cinematic experience a little bit better. And what I mean by that is in the second section of the book, although we are getting a little bit of stuff, figured out with the shark, in the book, when Hooper arrives, so the guy with the glasses in our trio from the movie, so when he arrives in Amity, he actually sees Ellen Brody, and supposedly they have a connection in the past. So Ellen had been dating Hooper's brother when they were younger, and then they didn't end up working out, and then, we know that she ends up with Chief Brody, the chief of police. And so when they meet up for the first time, they're kind of like, "Don't I know you? Yeah, we do know each other. This, and this happened." And Hooper is actually like mildly putting the moves on Ellen. So they want to catch up. They want to talk about how life has been, and so they even go out to dinner without Brody really knowing about it. And throughout that dinner, Ellen is like having a little bit of a crush on Hooper and having some very, very sexual thoughts about him. And they even started talking, somewhat suggestively to each other, with flirting. And so none of that is in the film. So it's a crazy different dynamic here in the book. Some of the things that happen in the movie that Hooper, was a part of, but actually wasn't a part of in the book, like when Brody went out with Hooper at night, in the film, and they found Ben Gardner's boat, and then they found him dead in the boat. Hooper actually wasn't part of that in the book. Brody went out, I believe, with one of his other fellow chief members, to go and investigate something, and they found Ben Gardner's boat, and then Ben was never around, and all they found was a tooth. And so they were like led to believe that Ben Gardner was killed by the shark. And they even actually tried to use his boat a couple times to go fishing. They were talking about renting it out, which is kind of like a dark thing to think about. Like, yo, I know your husband just died to his wife, but hey, can we use his boat? Kind of a thing, because he was well equipped for fishing. And so that was kind of an example of a difference where Hooper is actually, swapped into other things. Uh, I also believe that he is a little bit more. He's definitely more likable in the movie. I think he's more charismatic in the movie, and the fact that he's not, trying to get with Brody's wife is also kind of a good thing, for the film. Uh, but yeah, so the whole middle section is kind of this thing with Ellen and Hooper, and Brody is a little bit suspicious of it to a point where he's even kind of asking Hooper, "Oh, what'd you do the other night?" And Ellen actually wanted to have like a dinner party with Hooper, and there was this idea that they would have one of their friends come over and make it kind of like a double date and see if Hooper would, hook up with this girl. And so one of the plots that ends up happening is that when Hooper and Ellen go out to dinner on their own, they hide it from Brody. And the cover up is that Hooper was actually out with the girl, that he met at the dinner party. And so Brody finds out that the girl that was at the dinner party, she's actually a lesbian, so there's no way that she would have hooked up with Brody. So Brody starts putting like all these pieces together of like, you've been lying to me, what's going on? And he does push at Hooper quite a bit in the book, but it's never enough to go over the top and like demand that he admits what he did. I think Brody just kind of knows and then is kind of hoping for some sort of karma or just desserts to come around to Hooper. Let's see. So that's basically the dynamic of the book. Again, part one is finding out that the shark is there. Some of those deaths are very similar. So, like the skinny dipper in the beginning, yes, she does get killed just like in the book. The book is definitely a bit more graphic with the way that they depict that killing. In my opinion, it's a bit different from how the film depicted it. But in the movie, there's also this scene, like a big sequence where we have, there's a kid that was killed while the beach was populated. In the book, the beach wasn't super populated when that kid died. But then there's also I think the duo where the guy that's trying to help the kids, he's like, you kids okay over there? And then he ends up getting like eaten by the shark, and we see his leg, fall in the water in the movie. And then we also see uh, there's there's also another one that happens in the book, but they're all very separate from each other. Whereas in the movie, they seem to be bang, 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 like one right after another, like this massive shark event. And so I kind of think the movie did a better job with that, but I can appreciate what they did in the book. Uh, and then part two, like I said, it's kind of like this thing with Hooper and Ellen and sneaking behind Brody's back. And then part three is when Quint comes in and the trio go to, try to take out the shark. So there are some other notable differences that I think are worth noting here, and that one of them has to do with the mayor. So Larry Vaughn. So in the movie, Larry is very much like he wants money for the city, which is super understandable. This is a summer town. We need summer dollars, as he says in the movie. Uh, they depict in the book that the summer is where they get all their money and then they save up that money to use through the winter until the next summer comes around. And so it is very important to have that money coming through, but that's a problem when Brody wants to close down the beaches. So in the book, Brody does shut down the beaches, and Larry is very concerned with it because Larry keeps talking about how he has business partners. And so there's kind of an added layer of Larry's character here because it's not just that the city needs money, it's that Larry is involved with other people, and if the beaches aren't open, those other people don't make money. And what ends up happening is that because the beaches don't open, Larry actually gets like pinched out of the his business partners. And so he ends up towards the end of the book, he comes over to Ellen's house when Brody is still off and dealing with the shark, and he says to Ellen like, I know Brody's not here, but me and my wife, we are leaving because they lost their partnership. But one thing I thought was interesting is that Larry also goes on to say like how he would imagine his life with Ellen if they had been together. And so it's not just Hooper that's kind of all over Brody's wife, but it's also Larry. So there's like a really crazy love triangle type situation happening in this book. And I just thought it was very bizarre, but I mean, we got to have something else in there, right? To kind of fluff things up a little bit more. So I thought that was interesting. Uh, let's see. One of the other big things was towards the end of the book. So in the finale, all right, let's back up a bit. So in the movie, they're trying to take out the shark. They're out on the boat. In the movie, it seems like they leave the land and then they don't come back until the shark is taken care of. And the reason why we know that is because when they go to leave, Brody has a little scene with his wife Ellen, and he says, tell the kids I'm going fishing because they don't know when he's coming back. And then in the book, it's a point that they go out to sea and then they come back in every day. And so it's not like they're living out at sea. It's they go out, they come back. They go out, they come back until they're done with the job. And Quint even like measures out to where they are in their location. So we saw the shark here, so he marks it on his map so he knows where to go back to the next day if they don't end up killing the shark by the end of that day. So that was kind of interesting. Uh, when they're trying to get the shark in the movie, we do see that Hooper eventually goes in the shark cage to go down and try to, stab the shark. In the book, he goes down in the shark cage and he's actually eaten and killed. So that is a major difference here between the book and the movie because Hooper does not survive in the book, which I don't think Brody has a problem with that because Brody saw this guy Hooper come into his life, try to steal his wife, and then, now he finally got that karma, those just desserts, so to speak. Also, so in the movie with the finale, we see Brody, shove a tank into the shark's mouth, and then as the ship is going down, he's shooting, trying to hit that tank so that the shark can explode. That doesn't happen in the book. In the book, Brody is about to be killed by the shark. And just as the shark is about to get him, the shark pauses and then slips back into the water. Now, a little bit of context before this, the part where Quint gets pulled into the water, that is accurate. The exact same way, not so much, because in the movie, it's pretty clear that Quint dies before being pulled underwater. In the book, it's not so clear that he's actually killed when he goes underwater. And so, what we get out of this is that when Quint is underwater, right before the shark gets Brody, I believe Quint like stabs the shark and kills him and stops him. So that's how the shark ends up dying. Which also means because the end of the film, we see Brody and Hooper swimming back to shore. Obviously, in the book, if Hooper and Quint both die, it's only Brody that goes to shore. So that's another interesting difference between the book and the movie. Um, I do think it's an interesting perspective also for the movie because after the encounter happens at the very end and we see Brody going back to shore, we can see that they're actually not that far off from shore. Like the book makes it more clear that they're just kind of out there. I'm pretty sure people could probably just look out their window and see off in the distance that they're doing something, but it isn't really until the very end of the movie that we as an audience kind of gets that perspective that you can still see they're not so far out where they can't see land. They're off far enough where you can still see the shoreline. So it's kind of an interesting thing, I think, as well. So those are some of the big main differences between the movie and the book for Jaws. I think the movie is a more fun experience to go through the story, just because I feel like Steven Spielberg did a great job adapting the book and making changes that made sense. So, like, did we need the whole in between thing with Ellen and Hooper? No, we didn't. I think Hooper's character, like I said, is much more likable in the movie, so I think it was a good, swap there. But otherwise, most of the other stuff wasn't too far off from being different. It's just that the pace was picked up a little bit more in the film. So, would I recommend reading it? Of course, it's always cool to see what was the original plan by the author. But if you're not much into reading, the movie is just fine. The movie is phenomenal. It is definitely one that will go down in history. And so if you haven't seen it, check it out. If you enjoy this type of video, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Drops a like if you liked the video and drops a comment letting us know if you've read the book before and what are your thoughts comparing the two between the book and the movie. And then as always, everybody, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.